Welcome to my little chat on mastering the personal and communication skills for advanced development. Let's get going. Let me see. Okay. First, let's determine if this workshop is for you. And if you're interested in software development or if you're currently a developer, then yes, this workshop is definitely for you. Welcome once again. So, what to expect? I'm going to cover a couple of things about me, my personal things, what I like to do, and what I do professionally in my journey professionally. I'm going to talk about what I personally consider the 3 keys to success. In my presentation, there are going to be a couple of quotes, a couple of facts, definitely a couple of memes because I'm a big meme person. And there's definitely going to be some shameless self-promotion. So I love what I do. I love talking about it. I love talking about technology, and I love more like-minded people that look like me into the technical field and finding ways to do that. So this is a very exciting opportunity for me. Yes, Yemi, we're on the same page. We love memes. Awesome. So about me. Fort Worth, born and raised. A lot of people say DFW, but I tend to say in here all your life. There's a huge difference. And for those that don't know, Fort Worth is also called Funky Town. I have no idea where it got its name from, but I like the name Funky Town, and it kind of gives us this cool hip vibe. So I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna roll with it, and I've been rolling with it for a long time. So for those that don't know, I'm from a town called Funky Town. Cool. I was raised in a single parent household, so we can see. I have a picture of my mom right here and myself. Yes, I love my mom to death, and I'm a big mama's boy. She's been my North Star my whole life, and she's been the guiding principle for what hard work looks hard and anything that I can do. And when things get hard, I always think of my mom, and I always use her for motivation and encouragement to move forward and keep persisting when things get hard. So definitely love my mom, and at times I can be a huge mama's boy. I have one older brother. So in this next picture, this is basically me and my brother. My brother's Jacob. He's a solutions architect at this point in time. So you can see that technology runs in the family, and we have a slight competition. So I call him the genius. I figure I'm the cool one, and that little guy in the bottom right is my nephew. So he's up and coming. He's a very, very smart kid. I'm looking forward to his growth, and I'm looking forward to the opportunities that he could potentially have in tech. So it's very fun just watching him grow and watching him get smarter and smarter every day. Another thing about me is that I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering. I started off at TCU, and I was there for a year and a half. And after I went to TCU, I switched paths and transferred to TCC, which is a community college. I was, long story short, I had a lot of fun at TCU, so I had to do a little reset, go to TCC Community College and retake a few classes, and ultimately ended up at UNT, University of North Texas in Denton, where I got my degree in computer engineering. So that was a good time. Last thing about me that I like to speak on is that I am a speaker and a strong advocate for minorities in tech and minorities and underrepresented individuals and groups. So shameless self-promotion, right? If you believe there's an opportunity for someone to talk about it or to deliver an encouraging message about technology and things in the STEM field to children of all ages, adults, college age individuals, anywhere where you think that I can deliver a message or contribute, please let me know. And hopefully I can convince you during this presentation. So I I always like to keep a picture. I always like to add these 2 pictures in my presentations because I like to show that it always wasn't a suit and tie, and it always wasn't glamorous. It always wasn't full tech. I always like to show people that, back in the day, I was rocking the do-rag, the tall tees, the dog tag, the baggy jeans. Like I was pretty fly, in my opinion. I was pretty fly back in the day. So I was able to I had a personality, and I use these photos to show people that when they see me in a suit, they don't forget, nor do I forget where I come from. And what, it wasn't a terrible lifestyle, but there was an interesting way that we dressed, that we acted, and things like that. And now through time and maturity, I'm this guy now. And I throughout, thanks to my mom, blessings that I've received so far, I was transforming myself from the young individual that you just saw to this guy. And I just believe I have really high potential. And I feel like if I keep serving, and if I keep moving forward, and if I keep bringing young minorities into this technical field, I think we could ultimately end up in a better place overall. So my personal hobbies, one of my biggest hobbies that I do is, of course, video games. I put these two on here because Zelda is the OG game of OG games. I think Ocarina of Time is the best Zelda version. I will argue that down to anybody and everybody. The secondly is God of War. God of War is a top tier game for me. I played from one all the way to the latest one. And I say the latest one because there's apparently another one coming out. I'm a huge gamer, and if anybody's playing the games and you have a PlayStation, hit me up on Unbreakable Ice. And if you have it on Steam, it's a true killer. I will talk about where that name came from. I was big in shooters. So Link to the Past. It's a good one, but not as good as Ocarina of Time. Next part, sites and software solutions. So as a technologist and things like that, I tend to have a lot of fun designing websites for myself, and also playing with things like WordPress, React, just having fun on front end development, playing with Vue, things like that to try to stay up to date. The next thing I do is just try to build my own custom software solution, or look for opportunities to build software solutions. So I may do some contracting on the side, or mobile development for a friend, or back end design and development for a friend, and things like that, just to try to keep myself up to date on the latest technologies and the cool things that are coming out. Other than that, outside of that, I'm doing a lot of traveling, until COVID hit in. But before COVID, I did a lot of traveling. Some of the most notable places that I've been to are places like Mykonos, Australia, Paris, London. Fiji's not on here, but I've been to Fiji, and Dubai is definitely coming this year. This is a photo of me snowboarding at the Blue Mountain Ski Resort around the Blue Ridge Ski Resort around Toronto. So I had a blast, and it was a really good time when I went out there. And this is the quote on the top of this picture is pretty much my entire life. You never stop exploring. You never get bored. You keep moving forward. You keep learning. We live in a huge world, and there's so many opportunities to learn. So I chose this photo intentionally as a personal mantra, that there's always plenty to learn and there's room to grow. You just got to be willing to go out and get it. So this is why I love this picture, and this is why I keep that in my slide. Last but not least, I try to work out on a consistent basis, just because as a technologist, I sit in a chair 6 to 8 hours a day plus days. So I tend to try to get to the gym, or go walking, or things like that, just to try to keep myself happy and healthy ultimately, because I'm trying to just, stay on top of things and, keep my health. I got a long way to go. So my professional journey. First, I started off as an IT intern. So most people in technology start off the love for computers, fixing computers, taking them apart, putting them back together. Same boat. When I got to UNT, I was fortunate enough to get an IT internship with the city of Louisville. And I worked my way up from an intern to an IT systems administrator. So essentially a sysadmin, and we were a big Windows shop. So a lot of my time involved virtualization of hardware, sysadmin, group admin stuff, policies, and system resets. Next, I transitioned to development, mostly because I realized that as a system administrator, a lot of my job revolved around writing scripts, and any type of scripts, executables, learning how to create the executables in Windows, Like once I figured out how to make an executable or create like and use DLLs and things like that to create little applications that I could literally set to run at a certain interval or restart another application, or when a computer boots, I wrote a script to actually listen to other applications to start up applications that depended on the initial application starting up. So after my job became really easy because I wrote scripts and, essentially code to do my job, I realized that it was a better calling for me just to transition over to development, where I could create solutions and write code to solve people problems daily. So that's when I transitioned over to development. And from that, I've been working as a developer for about 6 to 7 years. And through that time, I was able to make it up to development manager for a company called Lexipol. And so I call myself a dev manager, and I like to keep it at dev because software engineering is such a loose term, and at the end of the day, we write code. I write code, and if anybody were to try to tell me it's not about the code, I would have a passionate debate about good code, maintainable code, and just things like that that resolve around software development practices, where at the end of the day, we're developers who love quality solutions and we're passionate about it. I'm still passionate about it. So this is why this is my career progression, and I'm sure that there are people out there that go in several directions when it comes in development. So next, we're going to get to the major keys. So the first major key I want to drop is, as a developer, you want to always practice communicating effectively. So I got a little quote. Communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. I like this for two main reasons. The first one is that you can learn it. Communication is something you can learn. A lot of people don't wake up being excellent communicators. A lot of people aren't instinctually good at communicating. A lot of people have to practice, rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Even before this presentation, I was rehearsing and rehearsing, trying to make sure that my body language, my tone, my speed, like a lot of things that don't come normally, I have to make sure that I'm trying to get the message that I want across. And the fact that that's learned through practice, it's exciting because it shows me that I can get to the level that I think I want to be at, to somebody like case in point, like somebody like Obama, right? When he speaks, people listen. He has a cadence that people listen to. He has a tone that makes you want to listen to what you want to say. And that takes effort and work, and we tend to see the result of hard work. And so that's why I like the first half. The second half is it can improve the quality of every part of your life. It's not just professional, it's personal. It can be your relationships. It can be a lot of things that just working on communication can improve of your life. And I internalize that, and I try to remember that every time I speak to somebody. I try to give them my best. I try to be accurate as an engineer. As a product manager, I try to be, not a product manager, but a manager, I try to be understanding of my employees' needs. So, but being able to communicate that is always going to be the part where I'm always working, because I want to make sure that my message is received clearly. So I love this quote because of those two reasons. Moving on next. I did a little research and found out in 2013 that Consumer Insights of Microsoft Canada, I know 2013 is a long time ago, but I found this interesting. In 2013, a research company from Microsoft Canada determined that the average human attention span is 8 seconds. And this was reduced from 12 seconds back in 2000. So in 2013, it's 8 seconds, and it's 2021. It may have gotten a lot. We can more or less assume that our attention span hasn't increased much. Sorry, got this. That's weird. 1 second. Oh, okay. We'll do it without the light. That's cool. So when it comes to an attention span, understand that when it comes to people in their jobs in the professional field, and especially as a developer, we don't have a lot of time to fully get across the story. So the key is to one of the parts of communicating effectively is to be able to tell the story with the context to the audience. Like a CTO is not the same as a product owner. A product owner is not the same as a developer. And even at the engineering level, a junior developer is not equal to a senior developer. I use a little code, the not equal. So for all my coders out there, I really appreciate if you know what that means and understand it. But for all my non-coders, that means it's not equal to. That exclamation point is a not. So these are not the same, and definitely not the same. So let's talk about a CTO. CTOs tend to care of when we're talking about projects and things like that, they're more focused at the higher level view. So they're asking questions when it comes to context. They want to know what value does it provide, and also how does this project overall affect the company. So think of something like SSO, where the whole company is trying to log in under the same type of application. Anything system-wide like that, when you're talking about logging in, or even at a higher level security practices and things like that, those are going to be the things that the CTO wants to talk about. The CTO is probably not going to want to start getting into the weeds of the database and things like that, where that context is more for specialized individuals that work in the database. And like I said, yeah, high tech level discussions. The CTO is more the guiding principles, the North Star. They tend to look at the financials of the technical solutions, just because that's their scope of concern and what we want to talk about. So we switch over to the product owner. So let's look at what a product owner wants to talk about. Product owner really wants to know when their feature will be finished. So say you're creating a front end website and you want to take credit cards. A product owner will probably be the one that's going to ask, okay, we've estimated the work. So as a developer, when they ask a developer, they want to know when the feature will be finished. So when you're product owner, keep that in mind, that their primary concern is when the feature will be finished. So we want to keep that talk around the business sense. And when we start talking about business sense, we have to understand that these product owners tend to not be very technical. So what do we do, or what is the best practice, is to explain a lot of technical concepts in plain English if you can. Chloe's right. They do not want to see the details. So let's look at scenario one. So a dev comes to PO saying, hey, PO, we have a problem. PO's like, okay, what's the problem? We're seeing hibernate executions in production. The stack trace is showing a constraint violation in SQL. PO, okay. Is that bad? Dev, it's not good, but we have to look into it to be sure what's going on. And now your PO's stuck because they're in a situation where you've told them something is broken and they don't know what to do. So so now the PO's feeling all kinds of ways. And this is pretty much the familiar thing, how a lot of POs feel when they're given a problem and not enough details to come to their own result of a solution. So this scenario one is not ideal. So let's look at scenario two. Hey, same thing. Hey, PO, we have a problem. Okay, what's the problem? We're seeing database issues that may affect our customers' ability to view their account status. And the dev keeps going. I'm looking into it now, and we'll follow up with a plan on how to fix it once I analyze it. Give me 30 minutes. PO, okay, cool. Thanks for the update. And so the scenario two is a lot more ideal for a PO, because you start speaking in the language that they do care about, and you've given them actual actual business pieces like their customers' account status. So when they have to talk about somebody else, they know that their product is affecting customers in such a way where they can explain it to other people that may use the product owner or that talk directly to the product owner. So those tend to be more likely his stakeholders and things like that are responsible for that. Those are stakeholders that he with. So he would let them know, like, hey, we see a problem, I'm on it, my engineers are on it, we're working through it. So it's always good to keep the product owner in the know in a basic business sense and be able to explain technical problems, translate it in a way that they can understand. And when you explain it in such a way, you tend to look like a sir if you identify as male. If you identify as female, you tend to look like a real ma'am over here. It's that second level boss status that you get as a developer or as an engineer, because you said, I know the problem, I understand my PO's concerns, and I'm going to tell him what he cares about. And it's going to be effective. It's going to be concise. If all I got is 8 seconds, I told him everything he needs to know, and then he knows I'm going to follow up. And so you're in a lot better situation with scenario 2. The next thing you want to keep in mind is to minimize surprises. So just like scenario 2 and scenario 1, there's a database problem, but you a situation where you're analyzing it and looking into it so long that you don't tell the product owner or any of the other stakeholders. So one key thing that you always want to remember as a developer is that you want to minimize surprises. And following up on that, bad news, keep in mind, bad news should always come from you to your leader. You don't want your leader to be told from some information from outside of his reach or outside of his team about something internal to his team. Surprises are never good unless it's a birthday surprise, but usually in the business sense, the more surprises you get, the more frustrating things become. So when you run into issues or concerns or things you're not able to fix quickly, or even if you are able to fix quickly, make sure you tell the product owner, like, hey, we got a problem, we're fixing it, or it's already fixed on the radar. But, I'm just letting you know so you're not caught off guard. And the last thing is that when you have a problem as an engineer, even at the junior level, mid level, and especially at the senior level, you always want to have a potential solution ready when problems arise. So like in scenario 1 or 2, if you have a database constraint violation, the potential solution would be, triage it, open up a bug, look at everything it's affecting, and then you would determine how and when you would tackle it from an urgency standpoint. So is it a all hands on deck type of problem? Or can it go into, say, if you do like a Scrum setup, you toss it in the backlog and you say, okay, yeah, we know about it. We know these alerts are going. It doesn't affect business continuity too much, or, we have a switch over. So always have a solution in mind when you have a problem, or learn where to go for the solution. So keep those resources in mind, or keep that frame of thought in mind. So when it comes to communicating effectively, always ask questions and make sure you get feedback. This is, I don't know if I'm dating myself by showing this, but this is one of my favorite lines from a great movie. When Chris Tucker asked Jackie Chan, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? A lot of meetings and a lot of times people will speak and other people will shake their heads for 30 minutes to an hour. And by the end of the meeting, there are no action items, there are no results, there are no follow-ups. It was just a meeting to have a meeting. So a lot of the times, how you can change the game on people is by asking, if you're talking to a product owner, anybody from the business, you say, hey, do you understand? And follow up and maybe have them explain it to you. So even if it's a technical problem, they understand what it means from a business standpoint. So same thing in scenario 1 or scenario 2. Yeah, there was a SQL constraint violation. Okay, that doesn't mean anything to a product owner, but if you tell them that it's affecting a user's ability to see accounts or their account status, that's something that they can understand. That's something they can grok and translate. And the same thing goes if you're a developer talking to an architect, another developer, or even a a junior level developer, right? If you're high level talking to a lower level and the lower level developer is bringing a solution that, it's not really hitting right, a good way to really translate or understand what they're saying is by saying the statement, walk me through your steps. And that way, a younger developer has the ability to think through the solution that they're proposing. And the same thing works the opposite way. So a lot of the times you have senior developers that automatically know the solution because they've been working with the product so long. Even as a junior developer or even as a new developer, when you don't understand something, you can ask them, say, hey, walk me through your steps. Like, what are you thinking? How do you get from A to Z? How do you get from A to D? Like, I'm missing B and C right now. I'm sorry, I'm missing it, but I'm missing it. And I want to get it clear so I can make sure I'm on the same page as you. So these two phrases I use a lot just to make sure that I'm heard effectively and that they're translating correctly that my message is bringing, or the message that I'm bringing. So we're going to go over a couple of signs of ineffective communication. The main one is people don't listen. So I think this picture says it all for a lot of people, is that a lot of people are already in response reply mode. Effective communicators listen first. So another sign of effective communication is if you say something and the response is okay, and they just kind of stare at you, you're like, it's kind of awkward, right? So a lot of times you got to be cognizant about these responses, because if you're getting more just okays like this, these are signs that there's room for improvement in your communication style, right? Or you get another question, what exactly does that mean? When I first started, I got this same question from product owners all the time, because I was so caught up in the technical portion that I didn't realize that I wasn't explaining problems in ways that they could understand or even that they cared about. They didn't care about how, I'm getting a console exception in my JavaScript code, right? Or I'm getting a 404 here. Like, what, some of them don't understand what a 404 means. And in highly tech companies, they do. But a lot of product owners out there, you start saying 404s, constraint violations, application won't start, my Docker container keeps rebooting. You're gonna get stares like this. This is pretty much the golden heuristic of ineffective communication. If you get a face like this, and then you get a follow-up like this, there's a lot of improvement that you can make when it comes to effectively communicating with anybody, really. Think about if you're a senior dev trying to talk to a junior dev. If they have this face, there's room for improvement. And trust me, there's always room for improvement for everyone. So when it comes to communicating effectively, remember these three main topics, and feel free to, take screenshots and things like that. Remember the audience context. Your CTO, they're more financial, they're more organization driven. That's their context. Your product owner is more focused on the feature and development of probably a more smaller context, lower to the ground type stuff. The second thing is to minimize surprises. And the last thing is to ask questions and practice active listening. So we're going to transition to major key number 2. Highlight your excellence. So I'm going to take a moment to level set about imposter syndrome. A lot of us go through imposter syndrome, and after doing the research, I found a good number that, that was estimated of a certain number of people that will experience at least one episode of imposter phenomenon in their lives. And that number is 70. So what does this mean? This means that chances are in our entire lives, the odds of having imposter syndrome is relatively high. And the interesting part about that is, or the one takeaway I got from that is that it's more common than I thought it would be. So, I'm sitting here as a black guy, as an engineering manager in a not so black company. I mean, it's people there. So maybe we're 10 out of maybe like a couple of 100, right? So if I'm not seeing people like me, if I got the degree, I got the accolades. I got a lot of stuff going for me, but in situations where my job gets hard, it becomes hard for me to give credit to myself for the things that I have accomplished. It is even harder to go down the list of things that I've done. And I've seen people with master's degrees and doctoral degrees go through the same thing. They work their butt off their entire lives. They get the education, and they still feel like, despite all that, it's not enough. And it's relatively common. And people who identify as Black or indigenous person of color, this percentage is greatly increased. So chances are, as a Black or indigenous person of color, you've experienced imposter syndrome at least once. And we have to first acknowledge it is what it is, right? It shows its head at the ugliest time. It makes you feel like you're not good enough. It makes things hard. It makes you want to give up. It makes you not acknowledge your greatness. So that's the one thing I want to say about imposter syndrome. We all see it. I felt it before, and if anybody that's listening, if you felt it before, I feel you. And it's one of those rough things that we all go through, but we make it through it. And so before I get into the solution, I'm going to highlight another problem. Mary T, she's feeling me. It sucks and it hurts. So another problem when it comes to our developers is that we all aren't the greatest self-promoters at runtime. And what does that sound like? So you ask the developer what they do, they're like, I'm full stack. Okay, there's a lot of stacks out there, which you just get that full stack, and so you get a response like, well, I kind of do a little bit of everything. Well, that's good and all, but how do you, what does that mean? If somebody's a PO or they're really trying to understand your tech stack, or if you're in front of a recruiter, the kind of do a little bit of everything, it's understood that you dibble and dabble in a lot of stuff, but it's not really specific enough. It's not really self-promoting enough. And the last thing is that this is what I used to say as a youngster. I like Java and, I know a little bit about the JVM and, stuff like that. So I would give really rudimentary and basic examples of that, the things I knew, but I wasn't good enough to say, yeah, I can work in, Java 8, 11. I'm practicing with 16. I'm dabbling in it and things like that. And I'm good with JVM configuration, the memory and the memory configurations and the CPU configurations. So these are definitely some keys. So how can we respond better? So instead of saying full stack, how about we say something like, hey, my preferred operating system is Linux. I'm familiar with MySQL, or if you're not MySQL, you do something like MongoDB. Or when it comes to a coding language, you say, hey, I have about 2 years of Python experience, 3 years of Python experience. My front end covers React. I've done a little Django, but fundamentally, I'm a Java guy, so I've been rolling with Spring Boot. Like that, when you start to hit those technologies like that, especially with people and especially with the recruiter, it actually gives people context over what you actually do. And even if they don't understand these technologies, they can still understand that they can still hear the quote unquote buzzwords when it comes to projects and things like that. So if you're looking for a React, you don't really say I'm front end, right? You say I'm looking for a React application. Or if React's your thing or if Spring's your thing, you can be more specific to help align your goals with what you're trying to do. So if you got a passion for any of these, it's really good if when describing yourself and your technical stack, be really specific. So do a little bit of everything, review your resume quarterly, add items on there, because we're all doing work in projects, right? It may be one huge project, it may be a string of projects, but always review your resume quarterly, because by the time you're ready to update it, chances are you have to do that mental checklist of what did I do this year? What did I do this year? What did I accomplish? And that is pretty hard, because you have to start remembering, okay, what was my role in this project? And when you update your resume, you can actually use that as a cheat sheet to create your elevator pitch. So if your whole project is working on an API backend in Java, you start talking about how you've improved it, how you added endpoints, or if you added security around those endpoints, or if you designed a new API, or if you added a Swagger page from an interface standpoint to make the API more consumable, like things like that. If you have them in your resume, you can use those as key points to make a cheat sheet. So if you're talking to a recruiter or anybody that's looking for a person with your skill set, you've already worked on your resume, so it's ready to go. And also you have some that reflect your resume because you're looking at it at least 4 times a year. And if you're really not sure how to fill out a resume, one of the ways I do recommend is the STAR method. The STAR method was actually is actually Amazon's preferred method, preferred way of responding to interview questions when it comes to behavior type situations and questions. So what's the STAR method? First, we talk about what situation did you face? So what was the problem? The next one is the T. What tasks were involved? So what had to be done to solve the problem? Action. What did you do? What were your actions? And the last one, what were your results? So just a quick run through the STAR method. You'd say, okay, my team, we were responsible for creating a new backend for this Java application. What tasks were involved? Well, we had to write the code for it. So I wrote and implemented the code to create the user for this backend service and that backend service and things like that. So that's kind of like the task and the action. The action would be creating the code, writing the test, doing the validation, doing the integration pieces for your work. What were your results? When it came to the launch of it, we had a successful launch of the application with minimum bugs and issues, right? So that's a quick run through, but you would want to go into, from a results standpoint, maybe try to find some data points where you increase performance or where you increase security. Basically, you want to talk about how, after you delivered the project, how either the organization or the application benefit overall from your effort and your work. So the key points over again, when it comes to highlighting your excellence, you can reduce imposter syndrome by documenting your accomplishments. Next, you should be specific about your skill set and technical domain. And this isn't only for development, right? I added technical domain intentionally because some people are really considering infrastructure. They don't really care about the code, but they care about putting the pieces together so the application and the data can run as efficiently as possible. Some people care about networking. Some people care about DevOps. Some people care about security. So you have a lot of places in which you can be specific in a particular tech. If you touch a little bit of all of it, that's fine too. But the specifics are going to be some of the keys that help you move forward and help get you in places where, when it comes to technical advancement, they really care about the specifics, because chances are there's going to be a situation where the skill set that you say you have is going to show itself, and you're going to be more than ready to be able to deliver. And it's to review your resume quarterly. It's hard to remember to review our resumes. I've been definitely guilty of not touching mine in 2 years. If I'm at a company and if I'm coding, I'm happy, I'm not looking at my resume. But at the end of the day, your resume is going to be your proof of work. A situation in society where we're not always at the same company, and especially in the technical field, we go where we're needed, and sometimes we go to the highest bidder. And if you want that value, if you want that extra change in your pocket, you have to have a solid resume. So when you talk about your projects, there's not like oh, we did this. You can confidently say the things that you've done to bring value, because proving that will definitely bring you it would definitely bring you a lot more money in the future when it comes to delivering that value and showcasing your value, and when it's time to make that sell for yourself. So definitely keep in mind, like, that resume is a huge deal, and being able to document it and keeping it updated is definitely a key. All right, so the last key: build connections and build your brand. Everybody knows this saying. Everybody knows this saying. Your network is your net worth. And these are facts. These are big facts. It's been that way for a long time. It's not, I don't see it changing anytime soon. And there's definitely going to be situations where that's not the case. But for most people, who you know is going to determine how you're going to grow and the way your professional career is going to go. One of the key parts that I try to tell developers is instead of considering themselves an introvert, because I run into a lot of engineers that consider themselves an introvert, I would say let's flip that a little bit and consider yourself an ambivert. For those who haven't heard about ambiverts, ambiverts are basically the combination of an introvert and an extrovert. You're essentially 1%, a percentage of one and a certain percentage of the other. I tend to tell people I'm 60% introverted and 40% extroverted. And I choose the term ambivert because it still takes effort and time and energy for me to get out and talk to people. But throughout my professional career and through my technical career, I've learned the most by asking questions. It's hard to ask questions because you have to acknowledge what you don't know. And sometimes you don't even know where to start asking questions. So that 40% for me, where I reach out, I learn the most and I appreciate that. So I do put in the extra effort. And now instead of trying to be the introvert that, well, when I grew up, society kind of called the devs the introvert. Like they don't really talk to people. They just hang around computers. They're nerds. They're geeks. Like I get all that, right? And it makes you want to be an introvert because nobody gets it. But you're not an introvert. We're built different. We're built better, right? And so I would rather use the term ambivert because, while I'm writing code, I may not want to talk to nobody. That's cool. I'm focused. I'm in my zone. But at the same time, I do talk to people. I got friends. I got family. I got people I love too. It's just I choose when to talk to people, and that call themselves an introvert. Just rethink how you see yourself, because you may just be more of an ambivert and you just be more selective about who you talk to. Next piece. When it comes to making connections, you want to seek to understand others' roles. Like the key number 2 when it comes to communication, key number 1 when it comes to communication. This is one of the key points where, as a developer, junior, mid-level, or senior level, you really want to understand what other people care about. So you always want to get into that mode of understanding, hey, you're the product owner. What do you care about? How can I be here to serve you? When you're talking to the QA team, what do you need from a list of acceptance criteria to make your life easier? How can we work better together? Understanding the CTO's viewpoint. Like, these are things that help you establish context and help you be more effective in communicating when you just try to make the connection to somebody to truly understand what they're responsible for and what they do. And a lot of people love talking about themselves. So if you ask somebody what they do and how can my team or I best help you as a developer, you put yourself in a situation where you put yourself in the light of a caring type light, and you tend to influence people because they say, hey, they're really trying to solve my problem, or they're really trying to understand me. And that puts you in the green light with a lot of people. So the next thing is always go to corporate social events when you can. When it comes to making a connection, at a lot of corporate and social events, we talk about work, but we don't talk about work. And a lot of people they say, let's not talk about work, but a lot of decisions are made at social events. So if it's things like Top Golf, or, just going out for happy hour, when you can, I strongly suggest going to social events, because it helps build your brand, that you're sociable, you're approachable. Even though you're an engineer, you're a smart person, you still have the ability you're still normal, right? You just think about things differently. You still, may like the same beer, you may like the same tequila, you may like to go to the arcade, you talk about your family, you talk about you as a person. It really helps. I've learned that it really helps humanize it's not really a stigma, but it's kind of like, how can I describe this? A lot of people tend to consider developers and engineers robots who stare at computers all day. And going to corporate events really flips that on its head and says, okay, yeah, this is a real person, and they got real issues that they have problems that they got to solve too. And it really humanizes us. And we're just not, we're just not calculators. Sorry, going back. Cool. And last but not least, be authentic. As you know, Black and brown individuals, we see life different. We live different. It's tough, and when things like when we see things like as a Black man, when I see things like police brutality in the news all the time, I mean, it really hurts. It's really hard to talk about it. And then there are, there's always some people around you trying to justify how, well, it must have been a them problem. And it's like, no, it's a society problem, right? And the authentic piece is fully representing yourself and fully being honest about who you are and the things that you care about. When it comes to your brand, this is key, because at the end of the day, the most success you can achieve is by getting a position that you've worked for and that you were honest about since day one. You didn't have to lie, cheat, or steal your way to the top. You made your connections. You were clear about your intentions, your goals, and you brought that authenticity. And I feel like in today's world and moving toward the future, that authenticity is what's going to bring people to. So I just had this meme when I talked about developers. A lot of people think this is what developers are. That's not what we are. So we're ambiverts. We have families. We do things. We do fun things. So keep this in mind. As a developer, we're not just people who stare at computers all day. Some of us are, but most of us aren't. So let's talk about what I should focus on technically. So as a junior developer, here's some keys that you could focus on. Junior entry-level developer. You want to understand the software development lifecycle. The next thing is that you want to focus on writing clean code. So clean code is maintainable, it's readable, and when it comes to like code reviews and things like that, people don't have a hard time understanding or reading your code. When it comes to clean, it's a lot about consistency. Next thing, as a junior developer, you want to go over the testing fundamentals. So things like unit test and test-driven development, integration tests. Understand what those mean, and understand what those mean from a performance standpoint over, unit tests are going to be faster or generally faster than integration tests. The requirements for a unit test are a lot smaller. It's closer to the code. So you're able to test faster and increase the quality of your code. And last but not least, focus on increasing your technical breadth. If you're a junior developer, chances are you're pretty new to the field, so you're getting hit with a lot of technologies. You got Java, you got Spring, the languages, you got Python, you got React, you got Vue, you got different front end and back end things like that, and then you got infrastructure. So just focus on writing good code, understanding things, and increasing your technical breadth. At the mid level, it changes a little bit. At level, you're going to be regularly contributing features. So that's one thing that's going to change. The next thing is that you're going to start mentoring devs as a mid-level developer. So that's, in my opinion, a good mid-level developer, what good code looks like, how to make your tests non-brittle. In this company, they give them some keys on what to learn and things, and put them in a situation that's going to help increase their output and value. They're also at mid-level, you're also going to be increasing your technical breadth. Chances are, once you get to the point of where you know most about the application that you're supporting, your technical breadth are going to go transition into things maybe closer to DevOps, or transition into things closer to maybe security. More of the non-functional pieces of application development, where you start to worry about the things around and outside just the running code. And the last thing is increasing the technical depth. So one example of this is, yes, you can write Java code, but when it comes to things like concurrency, how do you do multi-threading, like things like that, being able to implement a multi-threaded application, when reasonable. How do you do that, and how do you explain that to somebody? Like, those are the concepts that are a little bit harder to grasp. And I've seen a lot of situations where even senior developers run into concurrency issues when it comes to Java. So finding your niche when it comes to your technical path, and actually diving deep and truly understanding the logical, the theoretical, and actual what real life looks like. That's what's good about the technical depth and increasing that. So senior developer, at the senior level, when it comes to adding value, the biggest thing is that people are going to look to you to lead effort on complex tasks. The next thing is adding value when it comes to adding value is delivering on time and mitigates risk. If you know as a senior developer something's not going to work, communicate that early and come with a solution. Don't come with, hey, that's not going to work. Say, hey, by the way we're trying to do this, there's a X percentage of failure. Like that's a good way to deliver a message, even to the architectural level or even to the PO level. You want to start focusing on the end game, the full value of the application. Same, it's kind of similar to the mid-level. At this point, you're going to be mentoring junior and mid-level devs. So you're going to be talking about code, good code, clean code, how to automate that. Just the keys that you've learned up to the point of senior and trying to put your junior and mid devs on the right track. And last but not least, you're probably going to be technically broad at the senior level, but you also are going to have that deep knowledge of an application or a particular stack. So the SME is called the subject matter expert. So at the senior level, you tend to want to be a subject matter expert, or you're going to be a subject matter expert at that level. Adding value. I've added this last slide, these last segments, because it applies to all levels of development. One of the keys is to bring innovation. So always keep learning, always keep growing, always keep researching, bring something new to the table. Well, just said that one. Keep the hunger to learn, keep researching, reviewing. If you find a new open source library and it's more performant than what you're using, think of a business case for it. Think of a way to use it in your application, and feel free to bring it to your architect, or if you're a junior, bring it to your mid or senior level developer. And last but not least, ask questions about adding value. So if you don't understand what you're working on, or you're just heads down coding, chances are you might go down the individual contributors path. But if during meetings or while you're implementing the feature, understanding that why you're doing what you're doing, asking about the value will open up the eyes and also put that spotlight on you in the sense that you're a person that's more curious beyond the code. You want to grow. You want to understand how this application is going to make revenue, and then that translates to you're trying to understand how the company is going to make money by what you do. So all these are signs of future thought when it comes to development and growing in the development space and moving to the next level. Just to wrap up, social events are great opportunities to learn about colleagues and establish your personal brand. And last but not least, one of the keys is that at the end of the day, an engineer's brand is as good as the number of successful projects they've worked on. So you can be the greatest guy, you can be the greatest girl, you can be nice, you can be friendly, but if your track record is a bunch of failures in the past, people are going to say you're nice. They're going to say you're sweet. You're not going to get the job. You're not going to be recommended for the technology stack that you want to work on, because your path is what's going to determine what you work on. So with that being said, that's pretty much it. Thank y'all for being here. If you want to connect, or if you have any feedback for me, I left my you can see on the screen, I left my email and my LinkedIn. Please hit me up. Please, please, please. I'm looking forward to feedback. And if you really enjoyed it, please recommend me to anybody to speak. That's my shameless self-promotion. And there is time for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Maybe in the chat. And play with this light. I'm gonna see if I can get this light working. Nope. Some good techniques to expand your technical breadth. I would say it depends. Initially, if you're trying to code more, I would say hackerrank.com. I'll put that in the chat. I think there's something called think it's code kata as well. And any AWS or any cloud technology, if you just dive in one, that will be a great way to increase your technical breadth. Check out front end. Check out like Vue, Svelte, the frameworks like that. React. Just start practicing code in there. But it's if you're getting into infrastructure, I would definitely start looking into cloud technologies to play with. Kenneth, are you mostly a Windows camp or are you doing some Linux stuff now? I would say I'm a MacBook guy. I'm definitely a MacBook guy. A couple of applications that we support are production Windows, and we're switching over to like a container technology. So a lot of that stuff is running on Linux in a Linux environment. So a little bit of everything. I would say if you're up and coming, if you're growing, dabble in all three. In times you're going to see Linux. So, but there are cases for Windows and things like that. So dabble in all three, just so you can have that technical breadth across all three operating systems. Kubernetes, nice, very nice. Got the container technologies. Well, awesome. That is about my time. For those who haven't gotten my information, feel free to just take a screenshot. Hey, no worries, Kenneth. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. Trying to share the love, spread the tech. If I can get more people, if you know anybody else that is interested or they need that little push, let me know. No worries, Yemi. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up and thank you for the ping. I really appreciate you for holding me accountable. Thank you.